Do you really want to start thinking like a philosopher? Then watch this video till the end. There was once a temple, high on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, where travelers from across the ancient world came to seek answers. They came with offerings and prayers, asking the oracle of Delphi to reveal their destiny. But above the entrance, carved into cold marble, were three simple words. Words older than any empire. Words that carried more power than prophecy. Know thyself. The wisest of men, Socrates, would later say that these words contained the key to all wisdom. But what did they mean? And why are they still true thousands of years later? One morning in Athens, a young man approached Socrates in the marketplace. He was confident, full of opinions, eager to prove his intelligence. "Master," he said, "I have studied poetry, logic, and politics. I understand how the world works." Socrates looked at him calmly and replied, "You understand the world, perhaps, but do you understand yourself?" The student frowned. "Of course I do. I am who I am." Socrates smiled. "Then tell me, why do you do what you do? Why do you desire what you desire? Why do certain things anger you, while others bring you peace?" The young man hesitated. He had never asked himself why. Socrates invited him to walk. They passed the bustling market, the noise of merchants shouting, the laughter of children. As they walked, Socrates said, "There are three mirrors through which a man may know himself. The first, how the world sees him. The second, how he sees himself. And the third, the truth that lies between." The student asked, "And which mirror shows the truth?" Socrates replied, "None by itself. For the first is clouded by judgment, the second by pride, and the third by fear. To see clearly, one must learn to stand still." They stopped beside a fountain. Socrates pointed to the water, rippling and distorted. He said, "Look, what do you see?" The student answered, "My reflection." "Can you see it clearly?" "No, the water is moving." "Exactly," Socrates said. "When the mind is noisy, with desires, fears, anger, or pride, it cannot see itself clearly. To know yourself, you must quiet the waters." He leaned closer and said softly, "Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of clarity." Later, the student asked, "Teacher, why do people fear knowing themselves?" Socrates replied, "Because true knowledge begins with admitting ignorance. It is easier to wear a mask than to face the truth beneath it." He paused and said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." The student was startled. "Not worth living?" "Yes," Socrates continued, "because without self-knowledge, a man lives by accident, not by choice. He becomes a slave to his impulses, his habits, his fears." Days later, the young man returned, frustrated. "Master," he said, "I have been thinking deeply, but I find nothing certain. The more I question myself, the less I understand." Socrates smiled gently. "Good. Confusion is the beginning of clarity. When a man realizes he knows nothing, he is finally ready to learn." The student sighed, "But how do I know myself?" Socrates said, "Observe how you act when no one watches. Notice what angers you, what tempts you, what comforts you. There you will find the truth of who you are." That night, the young man sat alone beneath the stars. He thought of his words, his pride, his envy, his fears. He saw how much of his life had been shaped not by reason, but by the opinions of others. For the first time, he was not ashamed to admit his ignorance. He felt lighter, not because he had found all the answers, but because he had finally begun to ask the right questions. He whispered into the night, "Know thyself." And for the first time, those words did not sound like a command. They sounded like freedom. Centuries have passed since Socrates walked those dusty streets. The temples of Greece have fallen, but the wisdom of those 3 words remains unshaken. To know yourself is not about finding perfection, it is about discovering truth. It is about seeing your weaknesses without judgment, your strengths without arrogance, your fears without shame. Because you cannot master a world you do not understand, and you cannot understand the world until you understand yourself. Today, the mirrors have changed. We carry them in our hands, glowing screens filled with opinions, filters, and noise. We show the world our best version, but how often do we show ourselves the truth? Socrates would have looked at our world and smiled. He would have said, "You scroll through others' lives, but when was the last time you examined your own?" Knowing yourself means asking difficult questions. It means looking into the mirror without excuses. It means facing the parts of you that still need to grow. The oracle's words were never meant as advice. They were a warning. For those who seek power, wisdom, or love without knowing themselves will eventually be destroyed by the very things they chase. To know yourself is to live with awareness, to speak with intention, to act with purpose. It is to stop running from your own reflection and finally make peace with it. Every truth you seek, peace, love, purpose, happiness, begins with a mirror. When you know yourself, you stop searching for validation in the noise of the world. You stop fearing your flaws. You begin to live as you truly are, not as the world expects you to be. Know thyself, said the oracle. For in knowing yourself, you will understand the universe. To know yourself is the beginning of all wisdom.